Are games too big? That's my question. Because one theme I've noticed in conversation about video games lately, over the last couple of years, is that a lot of people seem to agree that gaming isn't what it used to be. And it seems like people are really obsessed with the idea that gaming used to be great, games used to be wonderful, and then something happened and the gaming industry got broken. And those great titles from yesteryear are no longer there anymore. And the glory days are now behind us. I don't fully disagree, because I do have memorable feelings about games that are quite old, like Sierra Online's King's Quest series from the 90s and late 80s, or Space Quest, another title, adventure gaming by Sierra Online, or the classic SimCity, or any number of the other sim games which were released about the same time, again in the mid-90s. I also have fond memories of games that were totally outside of the RPG genre, like Frogger, and games on the Apple II that were simple but memorable, like Choplifter and Lode Runner. My memories of games that were formative to me in my childhood and my teenage years, those game memories are different than the ones I have concerning games of late. In a way, it's special. Maybe it's like that sense of a first love. It's something unique and amazing because it's the first time you've experienced anything like it. But I think there's something else beyond just a sense of old nostalgia that makes people feel like gaming isn't what it used to be. And I stumbled across what I think it is. And it's that games have gotten so complex and so big, we just struggle to get our heads wrapped around them. There's someone at a tech company. I don't remember who it was or what the tech company was. It might have been Yahoo, it might be Microsoft or Google or something like that. But it was in a book I was reading. And this leader in the technology field at this company said that if you have a team that's too big to feed them with 3 pizzas, the team is too big and it should be split up. The point he was getting at is that human beings have a limit to how many connections they can actually maintain in their mind. So when we are surrounded by seeming abundance, one part of us thinks that's really good because abundance means we have a better experience. More is better. That's what we think. But the truth is that more overwhelms us. There's MMOs that have tons and tons of content, hundreds of hours of quests, and an enormous gate beyond which there is tons and tons of grinding. You can spend hundreds of hours and never get to the end of the content in some of these games. There's RTS games with endless amounts of intricate mechanics and fleshed out graphics and systems to where it feels like you have to make the game a full-time hobby just to understand how to play it. There's city builders like Anno 1800 that work so hard to be immersive and amazing that it can feel daunting just to pick them up. And they're amazing. And yet, sometimes it feels like it's work just to turn the game on, to load up your save file and keep on playing. Not because it's too much, I'm not saying that. They're wonderful games. There are wonderful games out there. But then I think about the complexity of these games compared to the games that we used to get on a floppy disk that you'd install on a old computer long ago. I think about the games that were 100% offline, where it would be in a box. You'd go home, you'd install the disk, and that was it. There was no more extra content. There was no more patch updates or extra things to do. There was just that game. You installed it, it was what it was. There's nothing more to it. There was no expectation that you needed to get hundreds or thousands of hours out of the game for it to be satisfying. There was no sense of a steep learning curve. They were simple games. They didn't take a lot of mental power to understand. You pretty much knew right out of the box what you were signing up for, what you were getting, and then you had fun with it at face value. To give you an example of another case that's very similar, the board game field is very similar. There's lots of board games out there that are so complicated. Cards and rules. You have to sit down and read the book of rules just to have a general idea of how to play the game. And I've looked at some of these games that come out of a board game box, and it just feels daunting. I get a headache just trying to figure out how to play the game. By the time I've figured out how to play, I don't want to play anymore. So, is it possible? The games are losing their charm because it's like that time that you can't feed with 3 pizzas anymore. It's like the joy of having a few friends on Facebook and then realizing after a while that now you have a few hundred friends on Facebook. And now instead of it being a close-knit community of friends, it's a directory of people who you don't even remember. Games feel less personal because they've taken so much effort to be comprehensive, to be expansive, to be huge. And maybe the irony of this is that we've gotten what we asked for all those years ago. We've gotten games that are expensive, that are immense, that check all the boxes as much as any game really could. But we lost the simplicity of a simpler time, a time when you didn't need to be defined by the game to have a good time playing it. I think we do better with simpler things. That's a truth in life. It's kind of like how you might say you want to experience adventure. You want to go see the world. But if you actually went on a non-stop journey to go see the world, you wouldn't really see much of the world. You might see the view from a cruise ship. You might see out the window of an airplane. You might see a tourist area in a city, but you're not really going to experience those places. You're going to just get this high-level sense of perception and have that gnawing feeling that you didn't see enough, that the place wasn't interesting enough. But then you could also go on an adventure in your own hometown. You could get to know people. You could get to know your neighborhood. You could spend time actually being present in what you already have. And then you might realize that a small community, a small group of people who you actually take interest in is a lot more valuable than a large group of people that you're overwhelmed by. I think it's the same thing in gaming. And that doesn't mean that we need to make our communities smaller artificially. It doesn't mean that we need to make games less complex so that we'll enjoy them more. it doesn't mean that we need to go back to 16-bit games that have tiny screen resolutions and they're super pixely and they're 100% offline. I'm not saying that we need to go back to 3 1/4 floppy drives. That's not the point. The point is that maybe we should change the way we see the hobby of gaming a little bit, to look at it through the lens we looked at it in a simpler time. To realize that games don't need to consume your life for you to take an active interest in them. To realize that you don't need to be a min-maxer, you don't need to be a master of the game to enjoy it. We need to start seeing things at face value instead of sort of always comparing it against all of the menagerie of other things. I've heard it said about dating and relationships that the same thing is true. We have so much of an access to so many people. There's that perception that the whole world is at your fingertips in some sort of an app or on the internet or whatever it might be. And then everything becomes really superficial and meaningless because in abundance, nothing feels special anymore. The lesson is that if you want to have the best experience, you have to learn to see your surroundings with fresh eyes. And maybe one way to do that is to go travel the world and go see all sorts of different places. And then realize, after you've done all that traveling, that what you were looking for was right under your nose the whole time. And then you come home and you have a newfound sense of respect for what home is. Or you could skip that journey of self-discovery. You don't have to go on the eat, pray, love journey to spend a whole bunch of money to travel the world, to realize that the place you call home is actually worth your happiness and your contentment. We spend so much time looking for things. That next game is going to be better than all the other ones in our Steam library. Or that thing we're going to do when we finally have enough money or when we finally can retire. And our whole lives get lived that way, don't they? It's when I grow up, I'm going to be able to have a chance to do things that my parents won't let me do. And then it's when I spend more time in my career, I'm going to get that promotion and I'm going to be at a higher level. I'm going to have a higher rank. And then it's one day I'm going to have a bigger house and then I'm going to be able to go, have that personal space I wanted to put together, or that car I wanted, or whatever it is. It's always chasing something. One day the kids will be out of the house and then I'll have a chance to do my hobbies. One day I'll retire and then I'll have a chance to think, One day. It's always that extra thing out there. Why can't the moment be enough? Why can't we have a sense of contentment and joy and happiness with the things we have? And I think the answer to that question lies very closely to the same place as that question of why it is that we could have a sense of joy and excitement and fun about simple old games from the 90s. We could have a sense of wonder about old movies like the classic Star Wars movies back when CGI wasn't even a thing. And yet today, with all the new things that are available to us, the abundance available to us, it's never enough. And we think the golden age is past. Well, I would say no. The golden age of gaming is not over. MMOs and RTSs and RPGs and city builders and all those things that you loved many years ago are probably better now than they ever have been before. That's the truth. The question is, are you better? Or have you lost a sense of wonder? You've lost a sense of joy. You've lost a sense of hope. And then you take that out on all the inanimate things around you, like the quality of video games or whatever else it is that you say wasn't like, it's not like what it was back in the good old days. And there is something comforting about this, because maybe if we realize that a lot of the things that frustrate us in any space are actually our own perception that makes us frustrated, not that the things themselves aren't good enough, then all we really have to do to get that sense of wonder back is to actually change our attitude and have a sense of positivity about the things we're doing. If you can't say something nice, then don't say anything at all. If you don't like a game, then you know what? Just don't play it. Is that crazy? If you aren't having fun, don't play the game. How crazy is that? And yet, people would rather rage about it, How dare they do some kind of balance change, or I don't know, whatever it is. Well, if you're not having fun, then don't do it. Like, there's other stuff to do, right? I think it's crazy. Oh dear, look at that. I missed that chest. Isn't that ironic? Couldn't get it open. I'll do it again. All right. In any case, I think it's really liberating to realize that something's your fault. And that might sound crazy, but it's true. Because once you realize that something's your fault, that means you can do something. It means you're not a victim. It means that you're not somehow being defrauded by the world, by life. That life isn't doing you dirty and you're just this sad victim along the way that's perpetually being shafted by something, It's nice to know that you can actually do something about your situation. That you can have a better life by having a better attitude. That the world isn't bad. That you just maybe lost faith in it a little bit. It's nice to know these things, because then you don't have to be a victim anymore. You can be positive. You can see good things all around you. And that's true in gaming. It's true in life. We live in a time of wonders, of abundance, of terrific things that surround us everywhere. So all things considered, why don't we just accept it? Stop raging about how things aren't good enough and celebrate all of the amazing things that they are. Till next time, thank you for watching. Goodbye.